What's good, everyone? This is Marcus the Fingaz, D-A-F-I-N-G-A-Z, back with the Sampleist with another review for you. In this video, we are going to review the Insanity Samples, Neo Woodwinds, Neo Brass, and Neo Strings libraries. Before we get into that, shout out to Insanity Samples for providing these libraries at no charge, even though they were provided for this review. The Insanity Samples team has not had a chance to provide any input or any insight or anything whatsoever. They had no effect on this review, and also, even though they were provided for free, that will not affect our judgment or decision of the sounds of the plugins themselves. Let's get into the overall plugin design that is sort of general across all three plugins here. So you have Neo Woodwinds, Neo Brass, and Neo Strings here. As you can see, that the plugin design is pretty similar across the board, which is really helpful. You have you do need the full version of Contact. You have thousands of samples here. You have multiple articulations per sound per library. You have multiple mic choices. The instruments were performed by principal chairs from the top orchestras in the UK. You also have some unusual and new age techniques. You can layer two articulations using this overlay that is dynamically accessible by the overlay threshold. You have the option of engaging a legato function, a true legato function, which makes the instrument monophonic, but you can also disengage the legato function, which gives you polyphonic control over the instruments. You have immediate release triggers. You have mic mix and pan section. You can remove mics to save RAM. You have an effects section with delay and reverb. You have expression and dynamic sliders, and on some plugins you have a vibrato slider. You have dynamics that work expressively on the expressive longs and short and soft to harsh tones. You have the legato section where you can choose how the legato interacts with the playing. You have adaptive modes. You have fixed modes. With adaptive speed, the slower you play, if you play slower than half a second per note, you get a more pronounced and lyrical transition. If you play faster than half a second per note, you get subdued in the fast transition. Same with adaptive velocity. If you play above 100 in velocity, you get those fast transitions. And if you play less than 100 in velocity, you will get those slow transitions. You can also fix this between fast and slow. You have legato volume, which adjusts the volume of legato transition, and on some instruments you have key sound, which adjusts the mechanical volume of the sound of the instrument. And you also have the overlay threshold on the plugin itself. It tells you the dynamics at which you're playing using the piano forte, mezzo forte, things like that. You also have a scale link, which will allow you to lock the instrument into a specific scale for certain articulations, such as ornaments and trills. There's so much to dive into. Let's get into it. We're going to start with the Neo Woodwinds here, and I'm going to start with the flute, even though it's number 2. I'm going to start with the flute because that has the most articulations here in the woodwind section. So as you can see, as we mentioned earlier, you have the similar design from all the plugins. On the left here, you have your articulations. You have this true legato option that you can select. You can either click it on or off, or you can use these key switches, A0. So if you select A0 on your keyboard, or D2 to disengage it. Where is my D2? Let me get to this instrument. Here we go. There we go. So we'll go to D2 to disengage it there. And as you can see, that light went off. So look at that light again. We'll press A0, and then we will press the D2, and that will turn it off. So make sure that you know those key switches, or you can just click it. And then on the left here are your main articulations. So you can either use the key switches, or you can select them individually here. And on the right here will be your overlay. So let's say you want your main articulation to be expressive long and your overlay to be staccatissimo, and this ties in with your overlay threshold. So as you play above this threshold, that will engage the overlay, and if you play below the threshold, that will keep your main articulation. So you have those options to get and create a really, really flexible instrument for your design. So those are that there. And again, you have key switches on the right here for those. So things in the red are your key switches. The green, again, is your true legato on. Your D here is your true legato off. These three options here, the E2, F2, and F sharp there, those are for your runs. So look at the runs options here. You have up, down, and you have the up or down. So if I hit the E, that will be your up, down run. If I hit the F here, that will be your up. That will be your up. And then if I hit the F sharp, that will be your down. G here, this will turn off to the purple G here, the G2, that will turn off your overlay articulation. So let's say you've chosen, like we have staccatissimo as the overlay articulation. If I hit this G, that will disengage it. Of course, you can also just click that and it will disengage it. So much flexibility there with your key switches and with your MIDI controller. With the Neo Woodwinds instrument in general, you have 12 gigabytes of samples. You have over 25,000 samples. We have these 4 mic positions and pan options. So you have mid left, mid right, overhead, and room. You can adjust those, or you can disengage them to save RAM by clicking the knob above them. And as you can see, my memory here is going down as I disengage these options. So if you want to save RAM and you only need one of those mic options, you can disengage as needed. You also have 21 articulations depending on the instrument in total here. And with the flute option, like I said, has the most articulations. Next to that, we will have effects. So this is general pretty much across the board on all three of these plugins. You have your delay, you have your reverb, and with the reverb in particular, you have a handful of reverb options you can select. In this case, you have two different plates. You have a cathedral, a superverb, a woodroom, and the studio. Below that, we have expressions and dynamics, and I believe your dynamics is controlled by your modulation wheel here, so you can have that going there, or you can disengage that if you don't need it. You have the legato types, which we talked about earlier, that adjust depending on your playing speed, or you can have them fixed, speed or velocity there. So you have those options. You have the legato volume, which adjusts the volume of the legato transition. And in this case, as we mentioned earlier, you have the key sound, which adjusts the mechanical volume of the sound of the instrument. Finally, these two sections here, and we're just going to go over these settings on this particular plugin here, and if there's any changes in the others, but once you get the idea, the general flow of it, you pretty much have it down, because like I said, they're pretty much the same across the board. So that makes it really simple to get them down. You have this scale link option, which allows you to choose a scale and tie that scale to things such as your ornaments and your trills, if there are trills involved. So trills, ornaments, and I believe runs also. So the scale link will lock it to those scales for those certain things: ornaments, trills, definitely the ornaments and trills, maybe the runs. Don't quote me on the runs, but definitely the ornaments and trills. So you can tie it to those scales for that. And then the overlay threshold we talked about. So yeah, that is the general gist. I know I'm going really fast. If you missed something, go back, rewind it, play it in slow motion. I want to get to the sound, which is most important here of these plugins. So what we'll do is we'll start with the flute, and I'm going to play this. I'll leave true legato disengaged so you can hear how the polyphonic textures layer with this. I have the flute soloed, and we will go over all of these sounds in the Neo Woodwinds and also brass and string. So this could be a long video because there's a lot of sounds to get through, but the general UI is pretty much the same across the board, so that is really helpful. So let's play with the expressive longs here, and I will engage true legato. I think by default, the best option will probably be to keep true legato unless you're doing ensemble patches where you might play things in polyphonic. But for the most part, most of these instruments only can play one note at a time anyway in the live setting, so we will stick with that and keep true legato on, and I'm going to play with the expressive longs. Let's turn up some reverb. You can see how that affects it. And we'll add in a staccato overlay, and we'll lower the threshold to about half. So you can get really, really dynamic there. Let's go to Marcato next. And I actually have ornaments as the other overlay. So we'll go to Marcato, and we will turn off the overlay. Also, keep in mind, the dynamics only works, when you see this light here, the dynamics only works with the expressive longs there. With the other options, if you don't see that light, the dynamics, as you can see, I'm moving this down here, will not affect that. So that's really only for those expressive articulations. We'll go to staccato. Staccatissimo. Then we have trills. Now remember, we can do trills. I'm going to play... that is semitone. Then we have whole tones. But remember, if we choose a scale here, so let's go to C minor, which is what I'm playing anyway. When you go to C minor, it doesn't really matter, because it will stick to the scale, so it doesn't matter which one you select. So many options there. Let's go to runs. So right now we have a downward run. And when I'm playing it at the higher threshold there, you see that it's playing that other articulations. And you hear some of that key sound coming through also. Let's do the up-down here run. So really great flourishes you can do there. We have a flutter tongue. we have some ornaments, again, that utilize the scale function. That's a semitone. Then we have whole tone. I gotta remember to play below the threshold to not trigger that other. And we can turn that off. We have semitone down. Very expressive. Then we have whole tone down. Then we have pa shorts. The pa sounds actually are like a plosive percussive sound that the player used, and as you see that in the parentheses there, percussive plosives, almost like a shakuhachi type. I keep hitting the lower notes. We have pa longs. I really like the overlay, the sort of like the whistle thing there. Then you have sing and play experimental. These are where the musician would actually sing the note while playing, and the higher octaves, the singer will sing an octave below at the higher octave. So we have some options here. Let's see what this sounds like. And we also have an experimental sing and play woozy. So you can hear how they get a little woozy there. All right, that is the flute. We're going to just play some of these other plugins here, the other sounds here, the other instruments, and you might see some other articulations. For example, with the piccolo itself, you have what's called this tongue rams, where the player would, ram their tongue into the instrument. Pause. But you have the tongue rams there. You have some other options depending on the instrument. You have the whistle tones here, which is like a whistle-like airflow with harmonics, creating like a bird song like sound, which has been pitch stretched. So we're going to go over these articulations and things in the other instruments. So you'll hear some different sounds there. Let's solo the piccolo, and we're going to start with expressive longs, true legato, no overlay. Turn up the reverb. Actually, we're going to go to a cathedral reverb for this one here. And we'll go to Marcato next. Staccato. Staccatissimo. Then we have their trills. And again, we can tie that to a scale. That is the semitone. We have the trill whole tone. And we have to turn the scale link off. So that, if I hit the E here, you'll really hear what the scale link does. So if I hit the E with the whole tone, you're hearing that E, F sharp. If I turn on scale link, it ignores that it's a whole tone and it only keeps it to the scale, which would be E, F. So that's a great way to sort of hear what that's doing when you have the scale link engaged. We have runs. Really great there, especially if you add some reverb. We'll throw some delay on here now. You have a lot of feedback going on. You get really expressive there. We have our flutter tongue shorts. Then we have our plosive shorts. Again, some expressive sounds you can make there. We have tongue rams. And our whistle tones. And again, for example, you can do expressive longs with an overlay of staccato here, and we'll lower the threshold a little bit, and you can do something like this. And we'll raise that a little bit. That is our piccolo. We will go down to the clarinet now. And you see you have some ornaments here with the clarinet. We'll start with expressive longs, and we will overlay that with our staccatissimo. Let me hit. Let's go to our marcato here. And we will disengage our overlay. We have staccato. And I like the plate reverb here. Staccatissimo. We have double tongue. And then our trills, again, remember our scale link. I turned the scale link off there, so remember that. Function runs. Sounds great with the reverb there. Flutter tongue. We have ornament semitone up. We have our whole tone again with the scale link. Let me do the E again. Sounds the same. We turn scale link off. You hear the difference there. So just remember that. Semitone down. And we turn scale link off. Actually, I'll do the F sharp note because that's where it will be different. So yeah, just remember that. We'll go to oboe next. Again, this will be a long video because I want to just at least play a little bit of each so you get the idea. Expressive longs with the oboe, and we have scale link disengage. We have no overlay. So here we go with our oboe. And we do have dynamics control. Very expressive there. I would probably add more reverb. Let's go to superverb. Yeah, marcato. Sounds great. I don't know why they did 3.5 and not 4. I didn't ask, but 3.5. So let's go to staccato. We'll turn that down a little bit. Next we have staccatissimo. If you want to just hear the key sound. I don't know if you can hear it in the background, but there's key sound there. Double tongue. We have trills. I will turn that down a little bit. And again, you can use the scale link there. Glitch flutter. There's a new one we haven't seen before. Almost like a triplet-ish feel flutter there. Then we have the ornaments. Another ornament. Yeah, so many options there with the oboe. Next, we will go to our Cor Anglais. This is a new one that was in an update, but you get this also when you purchase Neo Woodwinds. Expressive longs with our dynamics control. Yeah, sounds really expressive. Marcato. Let me choose Marcato. Then we have staccato. I'm pretty much playing in C minor for most of these. Staccatissimo. Double tongue. Trills. Semitone, then whole tone. Glitch flutter again. Then we have semitone up. Whole tone up. Semitone down. Then we have whole tone down. Next we have bassoon. That was expressive long, so we have marcato. There's staccato. Staccatissimo. Trills. Semitone, this is whole tone. Then we have our runs again. We'll do the up down. Flutter tongue. We have multiphonics, which is a new one. Actually, I didn't do flutter tongue. Flutter tongue. We have multiphonics, which is a new one. This is where the reed has been removed from the instrument and the tongue is used to force air through the instrument to make the note. So you get almost like an alarm type sound. And finally, we have tongue rams, which are short and percussive. We've seen that in some other instruments. Just to get air through the instrument. Number 5, and finally here we have ensemble, which is an overall patch. As you see here where it says true legato, you have a little poly there. So this means you can play multiple notes, so it's not just monophonic when you have true legato engaged, and you only see expression here. You don't have dynamic control. That is controllable by your mod wheel here, and then you also have some of the similar settings that we saw before. So we're going to play the instrument playing chords and things. So it's really great for sketching. I might even use that a lot and then layer the individual instruments as needed, but I really like the ensemble patch there. One Easter egg. I know we're spending a lot of time on these plugins. I think the others will go faster just because now we know the overview, but there is an Easter egg hidden in the Neo Woodwind specifically. We're going to jump back up to our clarinet runs. Now, we didn't really go over these, but you want to make sure that you're looking at and trying to see and figure out what these individual knobs do, because there may be some Easter eggs hidden in the instrument that you might not know. But here's one in particular that we do know is that Rhapsody in Blue style intro that they built into this clarinet run here, where you have the sort of opening trill in the glissando if you hit the B note here. And if you hit C here, C5, you will get just the glissando. So there's a hidden Easter egg in Neo Woodwinds. That is all for our Neo Woodwinds overview. We're going to jump over to Neo Brass next. All right, here we are in Neo Brass. Again, this is another instrument from Insanity Samples. This is separate from Neo Woodwind, so you can purchase these separately as needed. A couple things here. Of course, you'll get some different articulations here with the Neo Brass. In particular, you're getting 6 brass instruments. You have the ensemble patch. You have 5 gigabytes, over 20,000 samples. Again, 4 mic positions, 16 articulations. That varies per instrument. And you also have, you need contact full. The brass instrument in particular primarily handles the changes in dynamics with velocity input. As you can notice, there is no dynamic slider here. You only have expression. The attack knob is for expressive longs only, to attack for the first note in the legato series. Every note is affected if you're in polyphonic mode, or each note is played separately. So the attack knob adjusts the first note if you're in the legato series, and every note if you're in polyphonic mode. The expressive control in the polyphonic mode can be used to create crescendos and diminuendos, as you might know, and you can also use your modulation wheel here. And then there are some additional things and articulations that we'll go over as we come across them. There. So let's start with our trumpet here. Oh, also one other thing that you notice here, you see the same settings that were in the other plugin. One other thing you see here, we also now have an indication of the mezzo forte, the level, the dynamics that you're playing here in the plugin itself. So mezzo forte, forte, things like that. I don't know if I can get down to piano. There we go, piano. I saw it a little bit. There we go, piano. So if you know your dynamics levels there, you can see that in the plugin. So we're going to start with the true legato, the trumpet, expressive longs. And let's do an overlay with our staccato here. And our legato type is set to speed, so that means if we're playing a note less than 5 seconds or longer than 5 seconds, that will adjust the legato transition. And you also have key sound, which would be the sound of the valve knobs and things. Cool. We will go to Marcato next. We will disengage our overlay. And you might notice you don't have the indicator here above the expressions, so because every articulation will be affected by that expression thing. Next we have staccato. Then staccatissimo. Triple tongue. Then we have falls, which are the effects. Really like those. We have our flutter tongue. Then we have flutter crescendo. We have shakes, which are really, really effective. It's used a lot in like jazz, but I've also used them in some like pop and hip hop tracks. So for example, you can do your expressive longs and you can do your shakes. So that could be a little fun there. Then we have comic wops. This is really funny. Listen to this. Very, very cartoon-like, animated. Yeah, there is. I like that. Then we have muted flutter crescendo. So yeah, a lot of fun you can have there. That is trumpet. Let's go to our flugelhorn, and we will play the articulations here. And you might hear that the flugelhorn sounds very similar, even looks a little bit like a trumpet, just has a warmer and mellower tone. We have a marcato. Staccato. Let's go to a different, we'll go to cathedral here, then we'll go staccatissimo. We'll turn that up a little bit. Triple tongue. Falls. Flutter tongue. Oh, flutter tongue. Then flutter crescendo. And again, we have shakes. We can have fun there. And with chatter, this is a new articulation we didn't see in the trumpet. Chatter is where the player will flit in random pitches to shift maniacally in various ranges. So let's see what that sounds like. So you can have fun with that, very animated, again, cartoony type. So let's go to our French horn next. And we'll do an overlay with our staccato. We have marcato next. Then we have staccato. So you can have the same articulation with the overlay. It's just you won't hear a difference with the overlay. It'll just be the same articulation. Then we have staccatissimo. Triple tongue. The falls again. Flutter tongue. And the chatter again. Really fun stuff there. Next, we have our trombone. Let's play what our trombone sounds like. And we have a couple of extra options here. We'll get to those. We have expressive longs. I will not play the next part of that. Marcato. Staccato. Staccatissimo. We have triple tongue. We have falls. Flutter tongue. Flutter crescendo. We have shakes. And then we have those comic things again. Funny stuff. Then we have double wops. Then we have something called extreme slides. These extreme slides are separated into down and up slides that are triggered by the dynamics. If you play below 65, that triggers the down slides, and above 65 will trigger the up slides. So let's see what that sounds like. And you can see what dynamic I'm playing here. So let's do the below 65 again one more time. And then above 65. So there you go. That is the trombone. Next we have euphonium. We will play the expressive longs here. And maybe we'll put this in a studio. Very expressive. I actually want to do something wider. Let's just do super verb. Very dynamic sound there. Then we have our marcato. And next we have staccato. Let me turn off the reverb. It's a lot of reverb there. Then we have staccatissimo. Triple tongue. And then chatter. That is the euphonium. Next we have tuba. We'll play through expressive longs here. And again, the tuba, you have the lower end of the spectrum. Marcato. Staccato. Staccatissimo. And triple tongue. And finally, for the neo brass instrument from Insanity Samples, we have the ensembles patch where you can play chords and play them all together. So we are going to play some chords and see what happens. Let's switch to our adaptive mode of velocity with our ensemble here. So we're going to move this fader up to adaptive velocity. Let's see what happens. And you see with our overlay threshold set to staccatissimo, so I can play something like that, and then I do like an overlay. Yeah, so you can have fun there. If you want to just get some decent ideas going with the ensemble patch, let's go to marcato here. Staccatissimo. And triple tongue. And that will take us out of neo brass. Shout out to Insanity Samples neo brass. Next we will go to neo strings. Let's get into it. All right, so here we are with Neo strings from Insanity Samples. We have violin, viola, cello, double bass. We have an ensemble patch. We have 23 articulations per instrument, which includes 16 main and 7 extended techniques and effects. You have true legato with 4 legato modes. You have your dynamics expression, vibrato, non-vibrato control. Again, you have 4 mic positions where you can purge mics to save RAM. You have your overlays for layering articulations, as we saw in some of the previous plugins. You have a chord mode, which you didn't see in previous plugins, and the ensemble patch, which allows prearranged 2D chords. We have the scale link mode that we saw. You have 7 gigabytes of samples, over 29,000 samples. It does require contact full like the other instruments. We're gonna get right into it. So here we go with violin main instrument articulations. We have static longs, which we'll play here. We have our true legato engaged, and our modulation wheel effects dynamics here. And it looks like our overlay will be the tremolo. This is the default that it comes with. If you turn off true legato, that's where you can use polyphonic. I think with the string instruments in general, that is an option where you might use polyphonic things where a string player can play 2 notes at the same time using harmonics and things on the instrument. But for the most part, I'll probably stick with the true legato. Then we have expressive longs. And that is non-vibrato. Then we have expressive longs vibrato. So you can tell the player is vibrato is where the player moves their finger on the string of the violin back and forth slowly, but around the same note. Then we have staccato. So I would really use these sort of short articulations, all these next for neoclassical type sounds. So I really use those type of arpeggios things for neoclassical trailer music. So we'll go to spiccato. End scene. Pizzicato. So I'm hitting I'm doing the overlay that. Let's turn that off. Then we have forte decrescendo. Then we have our ornaments. And remember, with our ornaments, you have your scale mode options where you can lock those to a scale. That's semitone up. We have whole tone up. Again, that's the same there. We have ornaments down. Then we have your trills. Semitone, whole tone. And again, we turn that off. So again, remember the scale mode option. And then finally, tremolo. And those are the same articulations you get for the other string instruments. So we'll just play through the other ones. Here's viola, starting with static longs. do have another articulation here for the viola that I didn't see in the violin, called collegno or colegno, depending on where you live, where colegno is where the player takes the back of the bow, the wooden part of the bow, and they play it on the instrument to get a percussive sound, but it has a percussive sound with a pitch. So I really like using this. I almost go overboard when I try to program these type of sounds where the player can't play it because they will break their instrument, but as an effect, it sounds great. So here is colegno, colegno, however you want to say it. So you hear that plucky percussive sound. Pizzicato. Then forte decrescendo. One thing I did not mention is when you choose the scale link mode, you notice that the ones that use that function change a different color. So you will notice that UI change when you choose scale link mode to indicate that it is engaged and indicate which articulations take advantage of the scale link mode. Next, we will go to our cello. One thing I did not mention with the overlay, what the overlay does is when you play above that threshold, it will trigger the overlay, but it will still play the main articulation after it triggers the overlay. So keep that in mind. We have expressive longs. Expressive longs vibrato. Staccato. We have staccatissimo. Spiccato. Colegno. Pizzicato. Forte decrescendo. We have ornament, semitone. We're going to turn off scale link now. Great sounding sample set. Next we have double bass. We're going to play through these options. right, so let's jump into the violin extended techniques and effects. These are some additional effects. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 articulations here. And again, very similar layout as we saw in the other plugins here, where you have your expression. You do have this crossfade, which allows you to crossfade in between two different articulations. So whatever you have on the right side here, you can have crossfade all the way up or all the way down. So this would be all the way down would be the sol tasto in this case. All the way up would be the pont tasto cycles, and in between would be sort of the blend there. And some of the articulations we have, we'll just run over those real quick. We have the harmonics there. We have the overtone sol punt, which is where the player bowed right on the tipping point of being too far over the edge. We have the sol tasto, which is the warmth articulation. We have the pont tasto cycles, which is where the player moved their bow from the bridge to the neck slowly over time to create a unique evolving texture. We have the post bridge effects, whereas the player bowed frantically and chaotically behind the bridge. Then we also have the sol punt trims, which are like a glossy articulation. And then we have the erratic, which is wide to thin. So we're going to go over the violin extended textures here. So let me hit solo, and this is starting with harmonics. And I think I hit the wrong one. Harmonics, here we go. Then we have the overtone sol punt, and I'm going to leave this down. Then we have our sol tasto, which is a little bit warmer. Then we have our pont tasto cycles. That's where you have that texture evolving over time. Post-bridge effects. These are great for like horror type soundtracks and things like that. Sol punt trims. And finally, erratic, wide to thin. So we'll go through the other sections here with the extended techniques and effects. We'll go to viola, cello, and the double bass. And I won't talk. We'll just play through those articulations. Here we go. All right, and let's look at this chord mode. So what we'll do is we'll go back to our expressive longs chord mode here. And with chord mode 1, you see you have major, minor, diminished, augmented, sustained, power chord. With chord mode 2, you see you have major 7, minor 7, dominant 7, diminished 7, minor over major 7th, and then cluster chords. And those correspond to the colors down here. It would be nice if you had a little dot to indicate the colors, but basically major 7th chords would be this first bank here, the minor 7s would be the yellow, the green would be the dominant 7, and so on. And similar here where the orange would be major, yellow here would be minor, green would be diminished down that line. All right, so let's play just a C0. Yeah, so you could do something like, let's see, let me do C. Very cinematic third up chromatic mediate there. Let's go to chord mode 2. Again, we'll do the C0 major 7th down here. That last one would be great for like spy mystery type. So we'll do, what is this, minor 7. So you can create some really unique textures. Let's go to another articulation here. We'll play the staccatissimo. So really fun there. We'll do a spiccato. Forte decrescendo. Very dramatic. We'll do pizzicato. I skipped it. And then tremolo. So yeah, some really, really unique and fun things you can do there with chord mode on the ensemble patch. All right, so that takes us through all of the plugins in the Neo Trio. Hopefully we can get Insanity Samples to adopt that name. So that is our Neo Strings, our Neo Woodwinds, and Neo Brass. What we're going to do next is we're going to go to a demo that I've created using these libraries, and we'll jump over there. So here we go. All right, so let's get into the breakdown of this. We're going to start with the strings here. So I started with, actually started with the cello, doing some ornaments at the beginning here, playing this thing. yeah, that's the ornaments semitone down. This is in C minor. And then at the second part of that sort of intro, I have the violins coming in here doing this, using the static longs, playing along with that. So really no set structure in place, just really playing along whatever chord progression I ended up playing with the bass line there, and then building around that. And then next we have a viola coming in behind the violin at the second part of the intro here. And what I like, I used, and a lot of these I actually use the second articulation to play sort of the short, long notes. So towards the end here, I have the static longs, but I also use the overlay threshold to play spiccato on some short notes. So you can see that crossing the threshold there. And then next I have the cello static long. So after the intro, I just bring in a longer cello playing whole notes. So really just making it more lyrical, more dramatic. I do have the, again, overlay threshold playing some spiccato here when we get towards the end with some short things, transitions and in between notes. Some of them I didn't hit the velocity hard enough to get there, so you might hear the static longs playing those sort of riffs. So you see some of that crossing the threshold, some of it not. I could have lowered the threshold there, but it is what it is. Next, we have the bass, which comes in towards the end, and those are mostly those expressive longs there. So let's play, we'll play the end part. Yeah, so very expressive there. Then we go to the woodwind. So we're going to start with the bassoon, which comes in kind of early in the track, playing some fun things. So you hear the staccato articulation coming in there. So the bassoon is just doing some fun. I always think of bassoon as almost like a comical, lighthearted character. So doing a lot of those short notes to long holds and things like that. Similar to clarinet, actually a lot of woodwinds are doing those sort of short and long things. So as you can see, there's some short notes here. Starts off with some long notes. We'll start it from right about here. And I actually have a trill set, but I don't think I hit the threshold for the trills. Let's see. There you go. So I do hit it at sort of the end of some of those notes there where I hit the long note and hold it out kind of long. Next, we have the flutes, and the flutes are doing very similar things like the other woodwinds, short and long notes. And in this case, I use the pause shorts, which are those percussive plosives that makes it sound like really a lot of energy there. So let's play the end here. So I have those pause coming in. And then end it on some high notes there. Next, we go to our brass. I didn't use any of the ensemble patches for this. I could have just used sort of like 3 ensemble patches and called it a day, but I wanted to break out some of the instruments here. So we have the brass trumpet. And really fun with those hitting that articulation, that overlay threshold, and making that shake articulation come through. Otherwise, it is the expressive longs. So some fun stuff happening there. Then we have our brass French horn with the staccato overlay. So let's play over here. And last but not least, we have our tuba just layering with some of the low stuff from the orchestra, the violin and or the cello and bass. And they're actually doing more of the staccato as the bass and cellos are holding more of the long sort of notes. So yeah, so you have a lot of those characters playing along. I'll just play the last little bit here, but that's all the elements there. Let's play sort of the outro going here. Yeah, so overall, I really like this plugin. I really enjoyed working with it. Definitely will be adding this to my templates as I like to layer a lot of strings from different libraries. You have a lot of things going on here, all the articulations, all the different ways that you can manipulate them. You have the microphones, you have the built-in effects, you have different ways to adjust how you play it in the legato. You have the chord option on the ensemble patch for the strings. There's so much here, and again, with all the articulations and the key switches and the overlay threshold that allows you to have those overlays. There's so much to unravel. There's so much to dive into. So really, really great job for Insanity Samples. Where would I use this? Really, if you're doing orchestral stuff, obviously, but even if you want to add sort of that orchestral element to pop, hip hop, R&B tracks, which is what I do also. And then also I will find a home for this in my trailer music stuff, mainly the lyrical passages and things like that. But even with the staccato and staccatissimo and spiccato and those short patches there, you can layer those for like the neoclassical sound. So many things going on here. How much is it? So this is, again, 3 different plugins. You have Neo Strings, you have Neo Brass, and Neo Woodwinds. Each library you can get for $245. I would really like for Insanity Samples to adopt this Neo Trio terminology. I really like that name, but of course they might add more down the road, so who knows? In that way, and then in that case, Trio would have to go away. But right now we have the Neo Trio, Neo Strings, the Neo Woodwinds, and Neo Brass. Definitely check them out. If you had to choose whichever one you really feel like works strong for your situation right now. In some cases, it might be the Woodwinds, it might be the Brass, or it might be the Strings. But get them all if and when you can. This has been Marcus with the Sampleist. Be sure to check out other reviews here. Also, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you in the next video. All right, peace.